Telling an interesting story. Telling an interesting story. You know, there are elements that make stories interesting. There are tiny details that you can share that paint interesting internal pictures. You know, funny, uncomfortable situations where two or more people get into an uncomfortable situation, they naturally make people laugh. You know, things that come to mind are like, you see the American Pie movies? Okay, those are funny because, or like There's Something About Mary. They're funny because they juxtapose characters that are funny with, up against each other in situations that are naturally funny. Like, you remember the one where, I forgot what, the main kid like has some lube and some crazy glue. You remember that? And his friends like give him some porn or something, and he like pops in the porn and he reaches over to grab the lube and he grabs the crazy glue instead. And then somehow he winds up running around up on the roof with the police and the lights on him with his hand glued to his wiener, right? And the porn tape glued to the other hand, exactly. Like, that's genius, okay? That's great thinking right there. See, if you can think of these kinds of situations, you can get into them, talk about them. So tension and release, okay? Building tension and then releasing it a little bit, and then building tension and then releasing it. Okay, these are the things that make stories interesting. And conflict that winds up resolving itself in a strange way. There's a funny ending to the story. You'll notice that there's been a big trend, especially in the last 5-10 years, that movies end in a weird way where the whole thing is a trip, like Fight Club or The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, where you're going through the movie and it's fascinating, and then you get to the end and there's like this whole twist and you go, oh my God, everything wasn't the way that it seemed the whole time. Or Phenomenon is another good one. So stories like that have a really weird resolution with a twist. A friend of mine is just an amazing storyteller, and he really does a great job by painting a picture. I remember probably, it's probably 5 years ago or something like this. We were in San Diego out with my other friend that's here, and he was telling us about Greece. I'd never been to Greece, and he's like, oh, let me tell you about Greece. And he's like, Mykonos. And he says, you go to Greece and you wake up in the afternoon because you've been out partying, and you go out onto the beach, and there are these little pebbles, and they're about this big, and they make this crunching sound when you walk on them that you'll never forget. And it's the perfect temperature, and the ocean is crashing, and then someone starts playing music, and everyone starts dancing on the beach. And I'm sitting there listening to this going, I have to go to Greece immediately. I have to go immediately. And then he started talking about, the nightclubs and what happens. And then, at 5 a.m, everyone goes down to this one end of the island and they all line up for the after hours club and what it's like when you go inside. And he just knows how to paint the little details that are important. The ones that really communicate with another person. So there is a better way to tell a story. And if you work on it, you can improve your storytelling skills. Okay, and these are some of the best elements. All right, so these are some of the key elements. Questions to ask her. All right, here's just a few. Okay, to get you started. All right, so what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on a date? Or where's the craziest place you've ever had sex? All right. Which is the superior gender? Women love this kind of stuff. All right, or what's the craziest thing you've ever done? I'm really amazed at how, women typically they're incredibly flexible. A friend of mine taught me that they're far more adaptable than most men. Most women will just kind of go with the vibe. They'll go with the flow, whatever the conversation's going. Just recently, a friend of mine were in Phoenix, and we're sitting in Starbucks, and some girl came walking in with her books and her computer, and it was just basically the three of us, and she sat down, and she whips out all of her books and she puts them down, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? She's like, I'm studying for school. And I'm like, look at those books. Just shoot yourself. I mean, what do you? She's like, yeah, I know. And so we started the conversation up, and within like a couple of minutes, my friend, who's very good, especially in those kind of settings, immediately is just talking to her, and he goes, all right, so what's the craziest first date you've ever had? And And where's the craziest place you've ever had sex? And is asking her a bunch of these questions. And she was just loving it. And made me realize you can do this right at the beginning. Okay, these kinds of questions that like open the mind and they're a little bit off, they're great. And they're different. They're not normal. They're fun. Questions not to ask her. Do not ask her, what do you do? Unless you know and you're about to make fun of it. Do not ask her, what kind of car do you drive? Do not ask her, where do you live? Don't ask her if she has any pets. Do not ask her if she wants children. And don't ask her what her views are on religion and politics and abortion. Okay? Avoid that stuff. It's all normal. Now, the exception is if you're going to make fun of it, or you know what the answer is going to be and you already have the comeback, or you've got a direction you're going with it that's going to add a twist. Okay? So if you say, where did you go to school? You better have something, a whole theme that you're going to go with on the other end of that. You better have a direction that you're going. You better be getting ready to make fun of whatever her major was, or maybe you know it. Not, oh wow, that's so cool. I have some friends that went to school there too. Aren't we just like each other?